All right, so in this step of the problem, we are going to be looking at freeway fatalities. So in your notebook, I'd like for you to turn to the next blank page and title it Freeway Fatalities. So go ahead and pause the video while you do that, and then come back to the video when you're done. All right, so let's read number 1. Some people think that the number of freeway accidents can be reduced if cars and trucks were prevented from speeding. So maybe if cars and trucks didn't speed, there'd be less accidents. In fact, in some countries, every truck is legally required to have a special device called tachographs on its wheels, which records the truck's speed at all times. So in certain countries, there's a device that measures a truck's speed at all times. A graph showing the speed of a truck in miles per hour over a 6-hour period is shown below. So right here, there's a graph. Here is the speed of the truck, so 10 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, over time. So at 6 hours, the truck is at 0 miles per hour, so it's not moving. And then over time, it speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down, until 6 hours have passed. It says, estimate the total distance of the truck traveled during this time. Then explain how you could get more accurate estimates using the same graph. So 2 things. First, we want to know how far the truck traveled, and then how we can use this graph to figure out so we're just going to estimate how far this truck traveled over time. So let's look at just the first hour, from 6 to 7 hours. So in 1 hour, it traveled 60 miles per hour for about an hour. So it was at 0 miles per hour, and then it sped up, right? Sped up and traveled at about 60 miles per hour before slowing down. So if a truck travels, so number 1, the truck traveled about 60 miles per hour for 1 hour, so it traveled about 60 miles. Okay, so now what you're going to do is try to find the approximate distance over the 6-hour period yourself, and then how can we get an accurate estimate? Okay, so in your notebook, go ahead and write down how much you think the estimated total distance is, and then how you could get an accurate estimate with the graph. When you're finished with that, so pause the video while you do that, and then you're finished, keep the video going for the next problem. Okay, so next problem says, the graph below shows the distance traveled by a different truck over an 8-hour period. Make and justify as many statements as you can about the truck's speed at various times. So now this is a different type of graph. Here, we're looking at the speed. So it traveled at 10 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, so on. This truck, we're given the miles it traveled. So from 8 hours to 9 hours, it traveled 50 miles in 1 hour. Okay, so we know that, for example, okay, for number 2, the second truck traveled 50 miles in 1 hour. Okay, so your goal is to make statements about this truck during different times over the course of 8 hours to 4 hours. So 8 a.m. to 4 a.m. rather. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video here while you make as many statements as you can about this truck speed. And the truck speed, right? So this one, if we traveled 50 miles in 1 hour, so its speed must be 50 miles per hour during the first hour. Okay, so you go ahead and make those statements for this graph, and pause the video while you finish that, and when you're done, go back to the video. Okay, number 3 says, look back at your work for both graphs. The answers you got related to the geometry of each graph. Okay, so there's something about the geometry of the graph that relates your speed and your distance traveled. Okay, so if you take a look at your speed of your truck, we know that we traveled about 60 miles per hour in 1 hour. Okay, so if we look at underneath our graph here, it kind of looks kind of like a rectangle, right? So let me shade that in for you. Kind of looks a little bit like a rectangle underneath our graph, or 60 miles per hour. It's not exactly a rectangle, right? But it's approximately a rectangle. If I shade that rectangle in, oops, kind of just shade it in. Okay. We see that we traveled 60 miles, about 60, oh, I'm sorry. We traveled 60 miles per hour. This is our speed here. 60 miles per hour over 1 hour. And our distance we traveled, like we said here in our notes, our distance, oops, is also the area of our rectangle. 60 miles per hour times 1 hour is 60 miles. 60 miles per hour traveled in 1 hour means we traveled 60 miles. Okay? Similarly, okay, so I'll let you pause this while you kind of take a look and write this down in your notebook, that the distance we traveled kind of approximated this rectangle of our speed times our time. When you're done taking notes on that, go ahead and keep the video playing. So in the meantime, on this graph, you notice that we traveled 50 miles in 1 hour, and our speed is the slope of this line, right? So we traveled 50 miles over 1 hour, and our speed is our slope, or our change in y over our change in x. Slope equals change in y over change in x, which was 50 miles over 1 hour. Oh, this is our speed, sorry. Speed. We have 50 miles in 1 hour. So I'll let you take notes on that. So instead of the area under the curve here, we actually found the slope, the steepness of our curve. When you're done taking notes on that, you can go back to the video. So we can use the geometry of our graph to find something out about the distance we traveled or the speed we are traveling at. So for number 4, for instance, in the first graph, confirm that the truck traveled about 27 miles from 6 a.m. to 6:40 a.m. and 53 miles from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. What do 27 and 53 represent geometrically in the first graph? So if we look at 6 a.m. to 6:40 a.m., so here's 6 a.m., 6:20, 6:40, we traveled from 0 miles per hour to 60 miles per hour. We traveled about 27 miles. So again, if we make that kind of a rectangle here, we traveled 60 miles per hour. Oops. Whoa, I don't know what happened there. Let me fix that. Okay. So if we do that rectangle, we did 6 miles in 60 miles per hour in 40 minutes. Okay. So 60 and 40 minutes, which is 40 over 60 of an hour. Oh wait, I think they want us to, here, let me fix this. Instead of a rectangle, it looks a little bit more like a triangle, actually, if you take a look. You see that? So if we look at the area of this triangle, an area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. The base of this is 40 minutes, or 40 out of 60th of an hour. And then the height is about 60. So if we look at the area of this, I'm going to go on to my notebook here. Number 4, area equals 1/2 let me zoom in on this so you can see it a little better. Okay, 1/2 times base times height. Our base was 40 minutes, which is 40 out of 60. So we have the 1/2 times the base times the height, which was 60. So we have about, these cancel out, so we have 40 divided by 2, which is 20 miles, okay? So we kind of have, we have an approximate area that we traveled of 20 miles. According to them, though, it's 27. So a way we can create a more approximate or a more accurate area is if we break this up. So instead of doing one big rectangle, we can do a rectangle right here, and a triangle, I mean, and a rectangle. And then find the area of each separately and add them together. So if you, for yourself, can confirm what the area is of this triangle and the area of this rectangle to see what the distance we traveled from 6 a.m. to 6:40 a.m., you can go ahead and confirm that in your notebook. So work on that, figure out how much distance we traveled from 6 a.m. to 6:40 and 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., and then talk about what 27 and 53 represent. Okay. When you're finished, so pause the video, work on question number 4, and then when you're finished, go ahead and go back to the video to finish question number 5. So number 5, it says in the second graph, confirm that from 8 to 9, the truck is 50 miles per hour. What does this 50 represent geometrically about the second graph? Well, we already talked about this. Go ahead and revisit what we discussed and write down your thoughts and your answers for number 5. When you're finished with these 5 questions, take a photo of your work and upload them here on Dream Sea Do.